we're going to make a canyon. So we're going to have two plains and a valley in between. To start out with, we want to place our paper so that it's horizontally in front of us. That means side to side. And then we're going to draw two kind of organic or free-form shapes coming off from the edge. So I'm starting on the edge. I'm coming out and out and out 3 times. This center one goes out a little bit farther than the other two. I'm going to do the same thing over here. So coming out, out, out. So it kind of looks like they're pointing at each other. Now we're going to go from each of these curves. So where it curves outwards, we're going to take and draw a line all the way down to the bottom. So I'm going to start from this center one here. I'm going to go down, and this should not be a straight line. It should be kind of crooked. And from this curve, this is a curve here, I'm going to go down, down, down. And then even from this one, but instead of going all the way down to the bottom, I go down until I run into something else, and then I stop. I'll repeat the same thing over here. Okay, now it kind of looks like these are big cliffs that come up. This is where the grass is. This is the side where we see the rock. So we're going to give this a little bit more detail with the rocks. So just kind of drawing some irregular lines kind of coming down, and most of them are diagonal, but still vertical, still up and down. And we want that to be consistent for all of our rocks. Okay, now that we have our rocks with a little bit of texture on it, we can do that to the top part here. Now you can do a couple of things, but what I'm going to do is, since we have these vertical lines here, I'm going to make some horizontal and some curves, kind of coming on the top here, like that. So these lines make us believe that this is more of a grass. It's separate from these lines that look more vertical. Now, we want to make sure that these cliffs look like they're really up high because this valley is so deep. So what we're going to do is give some clouds. Now you can add some clouds even behind your cliffs here. So I'm making some curved lines, like so, and some texture inside, so I'm giving a couple of curved lines. And notice, like I said, some of these are actually behind our cliff, and that makes it appear that these cliffs go so high that they're up in the sky. Some of our clouds should actually fall off the page, so we should only see some half clouds. That leads us to believe that there is more beyond this page. Okay, we're going to keep this nice and simple, and you'll see why later on. But this is the beginning of our landscape. If when you were drawing you were using a pencil, I'm going to recommend that you grab a Sharpie marker and outline all of your lines again, and then erase any pencil that was left behind. This is just going to make it a little bit more bold. Now the techniques that I'm going to show you, I'm going to be using crayons for, but you can use colored pencils or maybe even oil pastels for this. Crayons is a nice easy one for me, and we're going to be talking about blending our colors. So I'm going to start with the rocks that are coming down here, and I'm going to start by coloring them yellow. I know, yellow, that's not exactly what you think of, first of all, when you think of rocks. But what I'm doing is I'm choosing a color that is nice and light and that I can blend with another color. So all the rocks in this area, I'm going to first start out by coloring yellow. Now this is the rocks too, so I'm going to go right next door and fill them in with the same color yellow. Now that I have all of my rock colored in with yellow, I'm going to take a darker color. So I think I'm going to choose brown. And we're going to do some color blending. So along here, this becomes kind of looking all one flat color. I want this part of the rock to appear like it's coming in front of this one. So I'm going to add some shadow or a darker color behind where it goes in. So I'm going to take my brown and right on top of my yellow, I'm going to add some of this darker color. It doesn't have to be brown, and it really doesn't even have to be yellow. I'm going all along the edge here. So now this is pushing this rock back. It's an optical illusion pushing this back. We aren't quite done with this. I don't want to just make a solid line. I want to blend it into the rest of my rock. So now I'm using a lighter hand, so my hand is not pressing as hard. And I'm adding a little bit of brown on the yellow, kind of coming out. And I can go one step further, and now I'm barely touching the brown onto my paper, and it's becoming even lighter out here. Now, a lot of times when you're blending, you might want to go several different directions, and the crayons or the colored pencils will blend a little bit better if you're going different directions. We can also do some highlights in here. So adding some brown on some of those lines that we created earlier. That's going to show some shadow and some depth as well. And then we can do that on this one as well. And maybe there's another curve that comes out over here, so I could add some of those brown tones right on the edge as well, making sure that I blend it in. So now I'm going really light. I'm going to do this for all of my rocks, adding the second color to give it a little shadow. So for everything else on here, we're going to use this two-tone sort of feel. We're going to add two colors, a lighter color and a darker color. So maybe for the grass, I use a light green, and on top, I add in this blue. It's a little darker. For the sky, I'm going to think a little bit more non-traditional, so I'm going to add a pink and maybe a red or this purple, I'm not sure. Or maybe I'll add all three. I'll decide that later. And then for the clouds, we're also going to give them color. Not always do you see color in clouds, but we're going to give a little bit of color. So maybe this blue with a darker purple inside. So I'm going to continue to color using combination of colors and blending and mixing my colors. Alright, I've been working really hard at coloring using my two color combinations, and in the sky you can even see that I used three. I added purple across the whole thing, I had pink across the whole thing, and then a purple down below and a yellow overlapping coming down until they kind of met in the middle. Now I'm working on my clouds. When you are creating or adding that extra layer on something that is curved, your coloring strokes should be curved as well. So I want to kind of give it that texture or that feeling of being nice and fluffy. So what I'm doing is just moving my tool so that it kind of goes in that curved motion. I also did that here with the grass because it's kind of that curve, that bend in the line. That's how I colored. I thought about that as I was coloring. All right, now we have completed filling up every single space in here. We have used two color combinations, sometimes even three, inventing our own colors and learning how to blend nice and neat.